All right, Khan, Shalom, Shalom, Israel. Shalom to the Torah, Shaziyash, Allah, giving the course, Allah, giving the praise unto the Most High God, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Hamashiach, Wabalak, Yahweh, Shah. All right, so I'm going to get straight into this. So it's going into how everything we see, or everything that happens in our life on a day-to-day, is really all of the Lord. And so we know that according to the precepts, because according to the Bible, the Bible doesn't support the ideology of free will. It supports the ideology of predestination and fate and destiny and things of that nature. So when we look at the Bible, all right, we know that everything is literally of the Lord. Let me get this account real quick. Let's go to Judges 14 and verse number 1. And it says, "And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman of Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines." Now, this is Samson, and he's a judge over Israel, but he's looking at these Philistines, and he sees a woman of the Philistines that he desires. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, "I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me to wife." Because back then in the ancient world, you would tell your parents about, who you were going to marry, or they would tell you about who you would marry, because sometimes they had arranged marriages. So let's keep going. It says, "Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well." So he didn't really care. He knew that it was a heathen that he was looking upon. It was a Philistine, right? But he said, well, still, get her for me. You know what I'm saying? For she pleaseth me well. But his parents, since his parents are like, is there not a daughter of thy people? A daughter, right, of an Israelite? Is there not an Israelite amongst all the tribes that you can't get with? But Samson still wanted this Philistine. Now let's keep reading on. Here's the point in verse 4. It says, "But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel." So remember, everything's of the Lord. Even Samson cleaving onto this heathen woman is of the Lord. And when you read on, he falls because of Delilah, all right, which was, the heathen woman. He falls because of her, right? He gives his strength unto her. That's of the Lord. So we know that all things, good or bad, is of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. We have to understand that, right? Let's go to Romans chapter 8, verse 28. It says what? "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose." So we know that all things work together for good. It's not just some things. That's all things. So if we know that all things work together for good, that's the good and the bad. Whether you might see it as bad, whether you might see it as good, all these things are working together for the elect. They're working together for good for the elect, but they're working together for evil and for destruction for the wicked. Okay? Because at the end of the day, if you are part of the number of the elect that gets delivered out of Babylon, that gets delivered out of the, wherever you've been scattered, if you're part of that number that gets delivered, guess what? Everything that happens in your life leading up unto that point, or Slakia, everything that has happened in your life, whether it be good or bad, has only led you up to that point to where you got delivered. So if those things didn't happen, good or bad, you also wouldn't have been delivered. That's how spiritual, right, predestination is. That's how deep it is. If certain things don't happen, the good and the bad, then you wouldn't be the elect, right? If you didn't, if your car didn't break down that one day, then brother, you wouldn't have stumbled across the Israelites, stuff like that. Like, we have to understand that everything works together for good. We have to understand that all things are working together. Like I said, whether that's, good or bad, good or evil, they nevertheless still all work together, right? And it says, "For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren." So, like I kept saying, Everything's working together. We know that everything is of the Lord. You know, hey, you might even be having a bad day, and you might go into a store or whatever, and you might stumble across the Israelite. You know what I'm saying? And that would make your day. That's the Most High, right? Having everything to work together for good. You stumbling across somebody you haven't seen in a while. Or maybe you keep seeing somebody, right? You see him at the 7-Eleven. You might see him at your job. You might see him at, this person keeps popping up. Hey, guess what? That's of the Lord. Everything's of the Most High. Everything's of the Most High. This person that's just talking to you out of nowhere, you was at the bus stop. Or maybe you were pumping some gas. Somebody just started talking to you. Everything is of the Lord. We have to understand, okay, that's strange. I wonder why this keeps happening. And let's go to the book of John chapter 13 and verse 7. Now, of course, we're not going to understand why the Lord has certain things to happen in our life all the time. We're not going to understand that, obviously, right? But let's read this precept, John chapter 13 and verse 7. It says, Yahweh answered and said unto him, what I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. So we don't know what the Lord is going to do. Or Shalaki, we don't know why the Lord does what he does in our life. Why did you get a car? Why did you get this car at this point? Why did this flood your garage at this point and not last year? How come you had to move here on that day and it couldn't be a week before that? See, everything is set in its measure. According to the book of 2nd Ezra, the 4th chapter, by measure he had measured the times, and he has weighed the times in a balance, roughly paraphrasing. That's 2nd Ezra chapter 4. So we know that the Lord has weighed everything in a balance, right? Everything happens at the exact second that it's supposed to happen. And so we have to understand how spiritual that is. All right, I'm going to read that again. It says, Yahweh answered and said unto him, what I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. You're going to know hereafter. You're going to know after why I did this unto you. It's going to be expounded unto you. But right now, you may not understand it. You may not understand why, you were feeling tired that day. Remember, everything is of the Most High. You waking up 10 minutes later. Hey, you might be like, how is that of the Lord? That's of the Lord too. We can't just say everything's of the Lord or just some things of the Lord, right? And when I say of the Lord, meaning that the Lord ordained that to happen. Not saying that it's righteous, not saying that, that the Lord necessarily was tempting you, because the Most High, of course, in the book of James, right? James says that the Most High, he can't tempt you with evil, right? Not that tempted he any man, or he's not tempted with evil. Let's get this precept, James chapter 1, verse 13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man. So God doesn't tempt any man, right? So when I say of the Lord, I mean that the Lord ordained it to happen, all right? And he allowed that thing to happen, okay? So we know that everything's of the Lord. So we just have to remember that as we walk, on our day-to-day lives, at the people that we might see, all right, the individuals that you might encounter, the way you might be so-called feeling or whatever. You know how people say, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That's of the Lord. The Lord wanted that to happen for one reason or another. You were late to work that day. Hey, there was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, all right, if I'm not mistaken, the person, the man that created Family Guy, I forgot his name. But it was said that the man that created Family Guy, he worked in the Twin Towers. In one of the Twin Towers. That was his office. Like, he had an office there or something. Like, he worked there. All right. But on the day of 9/11, supposedly, he was late for work. But had he gone to work on time, then he wouldn't be here because he would have died. And I believe this is even before he had made Family Guy. All right. If I'm not mistaken, you can look that up. So let's say that the creator of Family Guy was on time for work on 9/11. Hey, guess what? He would have died. Not saying Family Guy is some significant thing according to the precepts or anything. It's just a show, right? It's just a, animated adult show. But, nevertheless, you can see how the Lord works. The Lord wanted to preserve that man to do something. I don't know why, right? But the Lord preserved him to do something. All right? Just like how the Lord, will preserve his elect as well. Sometimes, it might get you out the spirit, if you're late to camp or if you're late to a certain event or whatever. Now, of course, if it's your fault, it's your fault. All right. If you just keep, coming late on purpose, all right, that's now you just forcing it. But let's say you're running late. You usually don't run late, but you're kind of getting out the spirit because you're running late. Now, remember, hold on. Everything's of the Lord. Let's say you left your house on time so you can get there on time wherever you're going. And boom, you get into an accident. Because you had that drunk driver over here. Or you might have had a person over here. And you turn that corner. And he was speeding down down the street. And boom, head-on collision. But because you left later, guess what? He wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't there to crash into you. So things like that, hopefully that makes sense. So we have to understand that, okay, everything is of the Most High. That's how you remain spiritual in this walk, because let me get this precept, just trying to remain spiritual is hard, but hey, that's that battle, right? Let's go to Romans chapter 8 and verse 6. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. And remember, spiritually minded is walking in the spirit. The fruits of the spirit, Galatians 5:22, but as well as just knowing that everything is spiritual. You know what I'm saying? Everything is spiritual. Everything has its carnal aspect. Everything has its spiritual aspect. All right. So with that, all praises to Yahweh Hashem, Hamashiach Yahweh Shah. Right. This brother Yasha Allah. Call me Yasha Allah. Shalom.